Previously on InterPartyConflict.
Well, look, I thought you knew.
How is this obvious? Like, how am I supposed to know what's going on here?
I mean, maybe you could just take a little bit of time and look at it yourself. How about you try to make time? Is that too much for me to ask?
That's a lot to ask, in fact. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, Jeff,
it's all good.
Come on.
No, it's fine. We're good. I'll just be gone. Bye.
Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff.
Yes?
I have an important question.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Actually played a little bit of D&D today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, how was it? Tell me about it.
It was pretty good. Yeah, so Gabe did a little demonstration adventure at the local library today.
Yeah, so my wife's a librarian at our local library, so she has me do these little nerd nights every now and then. And today she had me come in and I had a little intro to D&D. I ran a short adventure for anybody that showed up, and we had a couple people. It was you and our good friend Steven, and then also 3 people
who had never played before.
And
seemed to get it pretty well.
Yeah, I think it went really well. It was pretty simplistic. I only had an hour. So
sure. And we went over it a little bit.
We did. We went to like an hour and 45 minutes or something, but I had to cram as much as possible into that hour. I had really had like a big, I was trying to decide between whether I wanted to go with something that would resemble traditional D&D or if I wanted to do something that was less traditional but more goofy that could fit into the time frame better. Because when you think traditional D&D, you think they meet in a tavern, they go into a dungeon, they fight some goblins, and then there's a dragon at the end. And that's great, but like, how do you fit that into an hour?
Sure, yeah.
And so I thought I could do that, or I could do something that was kind of goofy and was easier to fit in that time frame. But then I was afraid, what if somebody showed up that had never played D&D and they were like, I want to learn this game called Dungeons and Dragons. And then because the idea I was tossing around was running the Calzone Golem adventure.
Right. And
then I thought, how would that feel if you came expecting Dungeons and Dragons and there was neither a dungeon nor a dragon?
Right.
And then you're talking to someone and they're like, hey, yeah, so I heard you were playing D&D. What's that like? They're like, well, we went into a guy's house and killed a giant pizza. I don't think that would be like, it would be a little weird. On one hand, the experienced player in me is like, that's the kind of adventure I want. That would be hilarious. But again, if it's someone who it's their first experience in D&D, I would want it to be as traditional as possible. So then they can be like, oh man, I want more of that.
Sure.
So anyway, I ended up going with something that was fairly traditional, I think. But I did it in a fairly short format, and I think it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, it worked really well.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, and the newer players, I think they didn't get too involved, but I think they, still sounds like they had a good time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't think anybody was like too left out or anything like that.
Yeah,
So.
I hope not anyway.
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, and I might do another one of those in the future, and we'll see.
Well, that'd be cool.
So Jeff, do you want to get into the episode?
Yeah, let's get going.
Okay. Well, dang. Well, Jeff, I can't find any dice within arm's reach, so pick a number between 1 and 20.
15?
That's what you got last time. Okay, well, so you get a 15 on your investigation check.
Oh, okay.
You found a secret door.
Yes.
That leads to the dragon's hoard. All right, so our item today was submitted by our good friend Chris via Facebook. Woo. I've mentioned him several times on the podcast.
Chris.
Hi, Chris. The item that he submitted is called Death Kiss. It is a slender, single-edged longsword that has a blade constructed of obsidian and sports a basket hilt and crossguard composed of mithril, which were constructed to resemble a large rose and a tangle of thorns. So going pretty strong with the theming here.
Sure.
Drow script runs along the flat of both sides of the blade. One side reads, "I love you in my own special way." The other reads, The most gentle kiss is the sharpest wound. The script is only readable under darkness, while illuminated with fairy fire, or under the light of the full moon while near a large body of water.
Sure.
So again, very strong in the theming department. Mechanics-wise, the sword is a +1 wounding longsword that never causes pain. Actually, every wound inflicted by this sword causes pleasure directly proportional to the pain the blow would have inflicted.
Interesting.
So, in a more mature campaign, maybe dealing with slightly more mature themes, I think that there's a lot of role-playing potential for the effects that it has. But I think just tossing this into a campaign, there's so many possible hooks in there.
Right, yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
So like the script, this only readable under the full moon while near a large body of water, I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I can't really expect a player necessarily to encounter that, at least not for a long time.
Right.
But when they do, I think that's really cool.
Right, yeah, for a while they just have this very interesting weapon that doesn't seem to work.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It doesn't seem to hurt anybody, but...
Right. I remember there was an episode of the show Farscape. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
There was an episode where the main characters, they encounter this guy that's genetically modified himself 1 billion times, and so he's super smart and super strong, and he's got all this stuff. He's like a scientist or something. Mm-hmm. And they get on his bad side, and one of them goes to break his arm, bend his arm behind his back to make him comply, and he just alters his body so that instead of feeling pain, he feels pleasure. And he's like, oh no, keep doing it. Keep doing that. Try and get me to comply. You can't do it.
Oh man.
And I think that is profoundly terrifying, because as the simple creatures that we are, every sentient being, and even a lot of non-sentient beings or just less intelligent beings or whatever, understand pain. That's the one thing that we know is a constant.
In most.
Well, in most, yeah.
I think it's lobsters don't have... Well, that might not even be a real thing. That might be one of those misconceptions. But
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some idea that there are some animals that their nervous systems don't actually have any pain receptors or something like that.
I think it might be lobsters, actually. I don't know.
Anyway.
But yeah, just the idea that this constant that everybody knows, if someone is in pain, they will try to not be in pain anymore.
Right.
Having that not be the case is kind of terrifying. And I mean, when it's a weapon that you're using, of course you can just use a different weapon.
Sure.
But it's just an odd thing to encounter. Mm-hmm. And imagine just if someone got attacked by this sword, and then for the rest of their life they are addicted to the feeling of getting wounded by that sword.
Sure,
Again, we're getting kind of into fetish territory, but
well, I mean, even things people that get addicted to drugs, they get addicted to drugs because the drugs make them feel good, and then they want to, so I can definitely imagine someone treating this like a drug and overdosing basically by killing themselves with a weapon. Oh my
goodness, Jeff. Yeah, that's a great way to look at this.
Sure, because it's maybe one member of the party is I'll hang on to it. I mean, it's not useful because it doesn't seem to work.
And then, every time the party gets into combat for the next couple adventures, they're like, wait a minute, why are you at half hit points? The battle just started.
Oh, I'm just having a good day. It's oh, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm fine.
Yeah. Another little tangent. Are you familiar with the movie Star Trek Generations? It was the first Star Trek The Next Generation movie. It was meant to bridge the original series and Next Generation.
Right. I actually have not seen it.
You haven't seen it? Okay, well,
a lot of the Star Trek movies I have not seen.
I can't really blame you. But I think Generations was really good. I just listened to a podcast about it the other day.
Sure,
but I really like Next Generation. But anyway, the plot of that movie is that Malcolm McDowell plays this guy who, a long time ago, was in this accident with. He was out in a ship somewhere, and this ship got hit by this out in space. There's this giant ribbon of energy that's just flying around space. Mm-hmm. And it hit his ship and some other ships or something. And it's a huge destructive force. But if the ribbon doesn't kill you while you are caught in it, you are in this, they call it the Nexus. It's this this temporal demiplane, basically, where it is your absolute heaven. everything that you want happens.
Okay.
And so his character was on a ship that got caught in this. Well, another ship came along and rescued him and some other people. And as soon as they teleported him out, he was like begging them to send him back. And they're like, we're not going to send you back. That thing just destroyed your ship. So because he didn't get sent back, or because he got rescued, he has spent like 100 years trying to get back into it. And the way that he has done that is by blowing up stars. Because he knows where the thing is, and he has like he's found a weapon that can destroy a star. So he's blown up a series of stars because he knows that each one will alter the course of that ribbon until it can come to where he is. And so the crew of the Enterprise encounters him, and they know that he's this guy that is he has already killed millions of people and is going to kill millions more.
Right.
Just to chase that dragon, as it were.
Sure. And
so I think that shows the potential. I mean, I'm sure there's like a drug metaphor too.
All right.
But that shows the potential of someone who is trying to get something that is bad for them, but that they are addicted to. So anyway, kind of gone off on a long tangent about this, but I think there's a lot to this, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's another one of those like. Could be useful, could be more of like a cursed item sort of thing. Yeah. So like, I don't know, it'll definitely make the game interesting if you throw this in. If you put this in your adventures, it could really make it interesting.
Yeah. Ooh, here's an idea. What if this thing was intelligent?
Ooh, okay. I mean, yeah, intelligent items are always a good time.
We actually just got somebody submitted an intelligent item that we'll get to next week. But,
okay.
Yeah, anyway. All right, I think that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard. So, you want to get into some questions?
Yeah, let's get going.
Okay.
This is a question we've had on the list for a while. So it's Amadeus from Reddit. Sorry it took so long to get to it. We've been talking about it.
We've got other questions that are on there from the beginning that we haven't gotten to.
Sure, yeah.
Someday.
Amadeus asks, would you as a DM ever use a timer to force a player to act quickly in combat rather than letting them fumble or figure out what they want to do on their turn?
Personally, I wouldn't. I can definitely see why someone would. I just think that if players are taking too long on their turns, I think that's... I mean, there's other ways to go about it. I don't know. I feel like if I was a player and the DM started using a timer on me, I would almost feel kind of like everybody's sitting there tapping their foot waiting for me to finish.
Right, yeah. You get that, you're sort of pressured to...
Yeah. I mean, the pressure might be a good thing. If someone does have to come up with an action really quickly... it could force them to do something they wouldn't necessarily have done otherwise. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I don't think it's inherently bad. I can acknowledge that, like, the problem I was having with it that I just mentioned a second ago could just be a personal bias of mine, and I could probably get over that.
Sure.
But, I don't know. I think there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah, I think the main thing with having a timer or anything is that combat does take a long time.
It does.
It's one of the more time consuming parts of the game, and it's not necessarily going to be fun. Like, not everybody has fun waiting for their turn.
Right.
But like me, I am horrible at making quick decisions in combat. I usually wait until the last second to start looking at what I can be doing, and then I end up fumbling through my options. So I can definitely see there being uses for something like a timer. Kind of keeps things flowing. How strict that timer would be, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, that'd be up to the group, obviously. I mean, if it's like a larger group, you might need to enforce a timer just so things just don't go way, way too long.
Yeah. I would say maybe with a larger group that might be a better time to use it.
Yeah. I feel like if it's a timer or even just like everybody has like a set thing that they're going to do.
Yeah.
Like a backup action. Something that if you can't figure out what to do, if the time runs out, like if you are using a timer, it's an action that your character would do in most situations, so that you don't, like, if you can't think of anything or if there's just not enough time, just like, okay, you're a fighter, you attack with your weapon. Simple enough. If you're not near something to attack, you move to that and attack. You know? In more complicated situations, that might not be like, If like if you're a fighter but you're like trapped in one spot and you can't move to the next thing and attack,
right.
It might, things might be a little bit more complicated. But I guess in that situation, you'd probably want to give yourself a little bit more time anyway. I don't know, like little things to kind of help keep the game moving. I mean, beyond just being prepared.
Yeah.
Which like yes. Like it's like like I should take my own advice because I'm not great at being ready to go when it comes to my turn, but it's best to just like try to be as prepared as possible.
Yeah. See, the way I see it is just that there are so many ways to speed things up in combat. I mean, there's like you said, combat takes a long time. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about trying to save time in combat, there are so many avenues to go about doing that. So I think rather than using a timer, I think it'd be better just to focus on using one of those avenues. Yeah. That being said, if you're in a group that wants to try it, go ahead and try it.
Yeah.
See how people handle it.
Honestly, it might work out for the best. It might like having that sort of rhythm to combat. Like if everybody has this set amount of time, you get one of those like chess timer thingies or something. Having like a set amount of time, you might teach yourself to be quicker with your decisions, and then after a while, you might not need the timer anymore.
Yeah,
that's
a really good point. In my job, I work on an assembly line for one of the big 3 automobile manufacturers, and one thing that I think really makes me think about this is that when working on an assembly line, you really do get into a rhythm because you have X amount of time. I think it's like every 50 seconds or something like that, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Sure.
So if there are some things that are part of your job that is going to take more than a minute, then what you have to do is you have to plan ahead. You have to be like, okay, well, I know this is going to take this much time. If I have enough time now, I will prepare it for when I do it later, and so on. Mm-hmm. And so that just getting into a pattern, a rhythm really can help, and it can help just your general planning skills, I think. Mm-hmm. So if you do enforce some sort of a rhythm in your game, I think over time, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I've never actually tried it, but maybe over time it could get your players to just be more forward thinking about their actions.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea. Like I said, I don't know if I would ever do it, but if anybody out there has done it, and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
And if they wanted to let us know how it goes, Jeff, how would they go about doing so?
Well, they could email us at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
There you go.
There was another thing I wanted to bring up. It not necessarily part of the question, but like using a timer in special situations like oh no, the castle's caving in or whatever. Like you could like set a timer in specific, like the players are in a hurry because something bad's about to happen. So it could be more of like a story thing. It could be more just part of an event.
That could be interesting. I've never done that personally. I know that in the original Tomb of Horrors, there were parts like that. Now, this is just another example why I think Tomb of Horrors doesn't really work in modern role-playing games. Yeah. But there would be parts where the adventure module would say like, okay, start counting down from 10. And then if the players don't do something by the time you get to 1, they all die. And I just think that's so goofy because I try not to talk over people when I'm playing D&D. So if the DM starts counting down from 10, my first reaction isn't going to be like, oh my goodness, okay, DM, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to let him talk. I'm going to wait and see what happens.
Sure.
I don't know. I just think it's weird. If you are going to do something like set a timer for narrative purposes, I think that's okay as a general idea. But don't have it be like your characters have 30 minutes, so you have 30 minutes. Because, my character knows his abilities and he knows his surroundings way better than I do. I don't know what this imaginary place is that my character is in. So my character is going to think of things, more accurately than I am.
Right, yeah. They'd be able to react to things quicker because they're there, but because,
So I don't know. I just, if you are going to do something like this, don't have it be as like 1-to-1 ratio as, okay, you have 30 seconds to do what your character would do in 30 seconds. It's
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Mostly Joe through our email, and he asks, have you experimented with reskinning classes and class features to emulate new or unupdated material?
Only a little bit, actually, but in a significant way. Back, my character Ichi, which I know is becoming the Ichi show. I talk about it just about every episode. He originally started as I wanted to find a way to play a samurai in D&D, and at the time there wasn't, I think maybe Oriental Adventures had come out. I believe it had by that point, but I wanted what I was envisioning as a samurai, which of course, for a teenager back in the early 2000s was not the greatest example of what,
like a samurai,
what an actual samurai would have been like. Yeah. I think things like that get romanticized a lot. But basically, I wanted to take a barbarian from D&D, which traditionally in 3rd edition would get a bonus to their strength and constitution and a penalty to their AC, for the idea being that they're being like reckless and whatever. And so the idea was I took that and I instead gave him a +4 to strength and dexterity because he was getting like super strong and super focused. And then he had a penalty to his constitution. So he had fewer hit points instead of being easier to hit.
Okay.
So for somehow or another, that made sense to me as being a good example of a samurai. So whatever, I made him as a samurai. And I don't know, it worked all right for that character. I really didn't stick to the whole samurai concept for very long.
Well, yeah, he became his own thing.
Which is not a problem.
Right.
But I think it's funny because, so I went and I made this character that at the time I actually I might have even asked about it online. I think people told me that like, oh, well, that's overpowered because a bonus to AC is better than the 2 hit points per level or whatever. But then fast forward a couple years when 3.5's Unearthed Arcana came out. They had a variant barbarian in there called like the Whirling Dervish or something.
Sure.
That was in every way better than what I made up for Ichi. It didn't get a bonus to his dex, but he got a bonus to his AC. And he got an extra attack per round, which Ichi did not get. And there was no like health penalty. Like the normal barbarian got like a penalty to their AC. The Whirling Frenzy Barbarian or whatever, for some reason didn't. I remember there notably being no downside to using it.
You got better stuff. You got
better stuff. I mean, you didn't have more hit points, but like with the real barbarian, you didn't technically have more hit points either because once you came out of rage, you lost the hit points.
It was like a temporary thing.
It wasn't even. It was a temporary effect, but it wasn't temporary hit points.
Right.
Because if let's say you were down to like 5 hit points before your rage was over, and then you were like level 10 or something, and then you came out of rage, you would lose 20 hit points, and that could kill you.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's power creep for you.
It is, yeah. So that was one example of me trying to reskin a class or like slightly alter a class. I feel like I've heard of somebody reskinning a character that used a hand crossbow just to make it into a gun or something. I'm sure people have done something like that. So I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who have done it more than me. I've really only done it that one time that I can think of. I personally, as a player and as a DM, I tend to reskin a lot of stuff. I think in the first episode I talked about reskinning just reskinning monsters in general.
Right, yeah.
And I, as a player, like to reskin spells a lot. If I ever have a character that casts spells, I will try to reskin them so that they all have like a common theme. So I played with a guy who he would shoot a fireball and it would be like he would shoot a flaming skull and then it would explode in a bunch of skulls or something.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Stuff like that. I like to use that. So reskinning is something I'm very familiar with. I haven't really done it too much with whole classes though.
Yeah. And I mean, I think plenty of people will do reskinning of like races and stuff too, even like,
yeah,
where it's like, you want the features of, you want like the abilities and everything of one race, but you want your character to be another one.
Yeah.
Like me, I really like Warforged.
Yes.
And, and like in a lot of cases, they're not always available.
Yeah.
But, like, although Warforged are a special case because like they don't fit into a lot of situations. They don't fit into a lot of settings.
Yeah.
But I mean, plenty of time. Yeah, you'd want something. You'd want to be one type of character, but you only have so many options.
Yeah. Reskinning races, I think, is a like you said, yeah, it's kind of a common thing. I mentioned a few episodes ago I had a guy that wanted to play like a vampire or something. And I let him reskin a doppelganger to be kind of demon-themed because that was up his alley. Mm-hmm. So like I've reskinned that. I've also seen, again on the topic of reskinning races, I feel like on Facebook and on Reddit, people have been asking a lot about could someone be like a half dwarf or like a half Goliath or something, like can you have a half race that isn't one of the, half elf or half orc?
Right.
And a lot of people have replied with like, well, yeah, I would give them half the benefits of this and half the benefits of that. I just want to say, this isn't quite on topic, but not every character concept needs unique mechanics.
Sure.
If you want to play a character that is a half human, half dwarf, you can just give him the stats of a dwarf, and story-wise, he's a half human.
Right, yeah.
That's not gonna hurt anybody. Maybe some DMs might have an issue with it thematically, if for some reason they just have this bug up their butt about letting humans reproduce with dwarves. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I feel like if it's for a thematic thing, that's, like there really is no reason for them not to be able to do that unless they just really don't see that working in their story or something. But it could just be the player really wants both abilities or something like that. And at that point, you do kind of have to gauge it and be like, all right, is this going to be overpowered? Which, it very well could be. And you might not know it until, several levels in, and then suddenly you're like, oh, shoot, this is really powerful. But then I guess at that point, maybe amp up the enemies, but I don't know. It's complicated. In general, I feel like racial abilities tend to not be very powerful. Tiefling wings. But oh no.
Sorry, there was so much. There's still so much that I have to say about that, but I'll save it for some other time.
Sure.
So yeah, I really to answer the question, I haven't done it too much. I've done it a few times for certain things, but I've never really done it. Like maybe he's asking, like, has there ever been a class from a previous edition that was never updated that you're like, ooh, I want that.
Yeah.
But let me just take an existing class and reflavor it. I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. I personally haven't really done that though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of like prestige classes from third and 3.5 edition that like a lot of prestige classes that like thematically have like really cool ideas. Not
like
all
the
them...
one that creates the giant boots.
Right. So what book was that in?
That was in Complete Arcane, I think.
Complete Arcane. It was like, the telekinesis specialist, but the picture was very deceiving to me.
We talked about this in the previous episode.
Anyway, but I mean, like, there's some classes that like when you read the description or the name or something, you're like, oh, that's really cool, and then like the mechanics are just kind of like, or maybe they do need a little bit of retooling or something,
like the Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil.
Ooh.
Although I've actually heard that's a really good class.
Sure, there's like some obscure classes like that just don't sound like they would work, and then somebody's like, no, you can actually do 700 damage in one crit or something with this thing. Anything that's like messing with what's there can be risky because you do risk like creating something a little overpowered.
Yeah, but that's why I think you should just reskin.
Sure,
reskin what's already balanced.
Yeah.
Okay.
This question comes from Kai on Reddit, and she asks, "How do you avoid being the problem player?"
Yeah. So there's a lot to this. Now the thing is, there's a lot of definitions of what a problem player is. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that you will find that what may be a problem player to one person or to one group is not a problem player to another person or another group.
Sure. Yeah, we've said many things about similar subjects.
Yeah.
And like, it really does come down to, play styles.
Yeah. And so like I posted on Reddit about this because, I know some things that could be what I would consider a problem player. I wanted to get some examples from other people, like, what do other people think are problem players? Because then I want to be able to make sure we cover all bases.
Sure.
And I got a lot of responses. I've kind of narrowed down a lot of them because I got a lot of repeats. I also got some things that I don't necessarily think warrant being called like, you shouldn't do this. First thing I want to talk about is someone who prioritizes their own fun to the detriment of the fun of others. Sure. We've talked about this on several episodes.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anybody how they should or shouldn't have fun. Mm-hmm. If you're having fun, all the power to you. The problem is when your fun is making someone else's game less fun.
Sure.
Now, you and I and our good friend Steven have played a lot of Dark Souls.
Right.
In the game Dark Souls, there's a very important mechanic that you can forcibly invade someone else's game. And you can and if you kill them, you get rewards for it. And then if they kill you, they get rewards for it too. And then like you can summon people into your game to help you fight bosses. You can also summon people to help you fight off invaders. But the idea that you can invade someone else's game that's a big thing. A lot of people really don't like that. And I understand that. There is a Dark Souls podcast that I used to listen to called Twin Humanities. And one of the guys on there was saying that when the first time he was ever playing one of the Souls games and he got invaded, he felt like someone had just broken into his home. He felt like he was not safe anymore. He felt like someone had like quite literally invaded him.
Right.
And I definitely think that like, I totally understand that mindset. There was a long time where I really, really hated when people invaded. Over time, I've gotten a lot more used to it, mainly because I've invaded other people. And, I've gotten to see it's not as dramatic as, everybody makes it out to be. But there would be times where someone would invade me. And then rather than just coming up and fight me, they would run off and hide in a group of enemies because the enemies don't attack him, but they will attack me.
Right.
So then they're trying to get me to follow them into the group of enemies where then it's not, then it's skewed in their favor.
Right. Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do that, but if you are doing that, I'm not going to play along. I'm just going to I'm just going to stand in a safe spot because I don't have to cooperate with you if your way of fun is going to make my game less fun.
Right. Yeah. Usually what I do in those situations is I get myself to the nearest save point basically and kill myself. And it's just like, because all he's going to be doing is wasting my time.
Yeah.
And making me frustrated. So I might as well just cut that as short as possible and just continue on.
And there have been some times where people have invaded and then, there was one time I was playing and you and Steve were in my game. Like I had summoned you and this invader came up and it seemed to me like he wanted to fight me one-on-one. And so I let him. Like I had you guys staying off to the side and then I went and I dueled this guy. I think that's really cool. But again, that's not the only way. Like you don't have to follow any sort of rules of honor when you're playing this game. Forcible invasion is part of the game. And if you choose to abide by rules, that's fine. If you want to stab someone in the back when they think that you're abiding by rules, it's all fair. All's fair in Love, War, and Dark Souls.
Sure.
But again, if that's going to be your play style, don't expect me to play along.
Sure.
Similarly in D&D, if your fun comes from stealing from the party or being a jerk to everybody else, that's fine for you, but I am not going to play along. If the whole group doesn't find enjoyment in your play style, for this argument, you are the problem player. That doesn't mean that you necessarily need to change. A lot of people might say that you should change. Whether you should change or not, that's not for me to decide. But it just means that you are not a good fit for that group.
Right.
There are groups that want to play evil characters, and most of the time that means that they want to play people that are going to stab each other in the back. Find yourself one of those if possible.
Yeah, because that could be a very interesting game as long as everybody's into that.
Yeah, and if you can't find a game like that, well, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, you're either going to have to change or just not play D&D.
I should play your brother's game.
The Mountain Witch?
Yeah.
You should.
We're like one of the things to do is to
backstab other people. Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to change. But if you want people to enjoy playing with you, you're going to have to accommodate them in some way, just like you are expecting them to accommodate you.
Right.
So yeah, like prioritizing your own fun in whatever form that might take can make you a problem player. Another one, there's actually two here, hogging the spotlight. So, we've all played with the guy that is constantly the center of attention and he's always saying, someone else will suggest doing something and he'll just talk over them and make a different suggestion.
Sure.
That's lame. We all hate it. But that's just kind of, some people are like that. They don't always realize they're doing it. And the way to deal with something like that, that's kind of, there's a lot of different ways to deal with it. Like the DM can try to stamp it down when possible, but
right. And like that, I wouldn't necessarily always call that person the problem player,
Right,
just
right.
because I mean, like they're playing the game, you know.
that's true.
You know, but I mean, like, and that could be said about all the other examples
Yeah.
we give too.
Yeah, if I didn't make it clear before, like a general disclaimer here, just about every example of being a problem player is not going to be a problem player to every group.
Right.
It's all about just finding the group that fits for you.
Sure.
So yeah, like hogging the spotlight can be a problem. Also, I mean, it can also be a problem because if you're taking a lot of time doing stuff on your own, we talked about that before, like doing stuff like a secret plan with the DM or whatever. You don't want to like waste too many people's time. But the other end of the spectrum, which apparently a lot of people are referring to as lumpism.
Yeah, I had
never heard that before today, but apparently it's the opposite. It's when there's the player that like they don't interact, they don't engage, they're there. When you tell them to roll some dice, they roll some dice. Maybe they're on their phone, maybe they're not, but like they don't really interact very much.
And you're not participating.
Yeah. And I mean, some people are just like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to an extent, most people like that can probably change it. It probably comes from a few things. Maybe those people are really shy, in which case there's ways to get them out of their shell. But like at the same time, they're probably always going to have some level of that.
Yeah.
It might be that they're just unfamiliar with the game or unfamiliar with the group. That will change as time goes on.
Yep.
Could even be that they just don't know what it's like to engage with the adventure. I would say for the majority of my gaming career, even now, I do this to an extent. It's hard for me to feel comfortable with everything. It takes a long, long time for me to really like as a player get engaged in the game. So that in and of itself isn't necessarily a problem. Just like I think hogging the spotlight isn't necessarily a problem. Mm-hmm. It's really, again, it's just whatever the rest of the group feels.
Right. I mean, if everybody's okay with this person just doing like, if he's not really disrupting anything.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I really in most cases that's not going to be hurting anybody, and as long as it's not just that person sitting there and quietly because they're not having a good time.
Yeah.
And at that point, maybe you need to address it. But if you ask them and they're like, "No, this is fine,"
yeah,
then whatever. As long as it's not bugging anybody else, I wouldn't consider that a problem player in some situations.
I think back when I lived in Tennessee, I had a guy that played with me for a little while. And like this, he would never really like say or do anything. When it was combat, it was his turn. He would do whatever, he would attack or whatever. But like there'd be times where I would ask him, hey, are you having a good time? Is there anything I can do? And every time he'd be like, oh no, I'm having a great time.
Sure.
And if that's the case, it might seem weird to the DM, might even seem weird to the other players. But hey, if they're having a good time and they're not disrupting anything, I really wouldn't consider them a problem player. Mm-hmm. Again, that's entirely the group.
Sure.
But, if I had to choose, I would say as a DM, I would rather have an entire table of attention hogs than an entire table of lumps, I guess. I hate that.
Lumpists.
I hate that term, but I feel like I've heard it from several different people. So.
Sure. Maybe it's just big on the subreddit or something.
Maybe. So that's a couple examples. A lot of these really extend from the same problem, and that is expectations mismatch.
Yeah.
So if you want something that the rest of the group doesn't want, or the rest of the group wants something that you don't want, that's the problem. I don't necessarily think that means that you are a problem player. Again, I think it's just you're not a good fit for the group. So if you want a certain type of game, if you want a game that's like really lighthearted and funny, or if you want a game that's really serious and the rest of the group wants the opposite, those people might consider you the problem player. I could understand being in a group where like, we're trying to do this real grim, dark, serious campaign. And then there's the one guy who keeps being like, well, hey, everybody, I'm going to, play a joke. I don't know.
Or it's like you come up to the necromancer or something and everybody's like, okay, we got to sneak up on the necromancer. And he's like, I'm going to tie his shoelaces together.
Yeah.
Like, what, what skill do I roll for that, DM?
Yeah. So like, just if your expectations are different than the group, try and figure that out as early as possible, just so that you don't have any sort of friction as you go on. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is probably pretty easy to accept is definitely problem players, people that don't pay attention to what's going on in the game.
Sure.
If you're if you're paying too much attention to other things, if you're on your phone, if you're reading the book, whatever, like those things aren't inherently wrong in the right group. But even in the right group, if you aren't paying attention, if you aren't valuing everybody else's time, I would say that is universally a problem.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Wasting people. I mean, people are taking time out of their days to have fun. And if you're not respecting that and wasting that, that's definitely a problem.
Yeah. Always pay attention when you're playing. I mean, of course, there's exceptions if you're trying to figure out what you're going to do on your next turn, and as a result, you miss something that happened. Okay, that's probably acceptable. But like when it becomes a problem, when it happens every round, then that's something you need to change.
Yeah, maybe they need to use a timer.
Maybe. All right. Another one is when you forget that the goal of the game is for the players to have fun. This is definitely a general thing that I think is universally a problem player.
Yeah.
A lot of these other problems, like a lot of problems people have is like with rules lawyers.
Right.
I don't think that rules lawyers are inherently bad. I've talked about this before, but like you want someone that knows the rules, and you can't fault someone for expecting to stick to the rules that everybody agreed to stick to.
Right.
But when you forget that the goal is to have fun, if everybody is having a blast not following the rules, it is not your place to say, no, you need to follow the rules. Because the game is meant to have fun. You're there to have fun. And if they're having fun, let them have fun. Fun, fun, fun. In the sun, sun, sun. So, yeah. So
Party,
if you
if
you forget that the goal is for the players to have fun, that makes you a problem player. Another one that I think is universally bad is cheating.
Ooh.
And hey, spoiler alert, this kind of extends to the DM too. Some people say DMs by definition cannot cheat. That is wrong.
Sure.
DMs can cheat. It's just that it is more acceptable for DMs to cheat. That doesn't mean that they should do it. It also doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. But I think that you shouldn't necessarily defend when a DM cheats. Like, I think that might just go to a difference of expectations or whatever. Maybe the DM wants a different type of game than you do. The DM wants it to be dramatic regardless of the dice. I personally, as a player, would rather, like, the game isn't dramatic to me if the dice are completely disregarded.
Sure.
Because anybody can just tell us a story. I'm not here just to tell a story. I'm here to play a game with the rules and with dice.
Right.
So anyway, but that's me. I don't necessarily think that everybody feels the same way about that. But player cheating, I think, is across the board bad.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel cheated.
Yeah.
So like,
and if I'm following the rules and I'm getting penalized for it, and you're not following the rules, and you're taking, like, you're getting enjoyment out of not following the rules, I don't like that. I mean, I guess maybe to some extent that's a difference of expectations and whatever.
Sure.
But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a group that is okay with players cheating. Maybe there's some out there. I don't know. But just don't cheat, people.
I feel like if you get a group that's just everyone's just okay with cheating, then you end up with an item that has unlimited wish.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, well, I'm just gonna cheat my way through this adventure. Like, oh, I rolled a natural 20 again. Oh boy.
It's just like if you're gonna cheat, why even bother with dice?
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's why.
If you want to play a game where you just tell a cool story, then just play a game where you tell a cool story. There's so many games that do exactly that.
Maybe start writing a blog or something.
Yeah.
Like just start writing a story. Maybe you just want to be a storyteller.
Maybe.
Yeah. That could be.
Or what if you just want to be a character in a story? You don't want to write the story. You want someone else to write the story about how cool you are. I don't know. You can probably commission
just go over you go over to your friend's basement and just be like, tell me how cool I am. No. In a better, more like cooler way.
No. Wait. So what did I do to the goblin? I killed it. Awesome.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, me.
Yeah. You're playing a game that is explicitly imaginary. Why are you cheating? Mm-hmm. What do you have to gain that you couldn't get otherwise? It's all imagination, people.
But Gabe, they gotta win.
Well, that brings us to our next example, actually, and that is trying to win, quote unquote, win, or trying to, quote unquote, be the best.
All right.
I've played with people that do both. I've played with a player that would always, he tried to be the best at everything. I mean, there's the concept of a jack of all trades, master of none, whatever. But if you're I played this guy that if he found out that you were good at, like, I don't know, if you were really strong, he would be like, oh, well, I want to be stronger than you. So he would like go home and he would remake his character so that he was stronger than whatever your character was.
Sure.
I mean, remaking your character, that's a whole different issue. Don't remake it. That's another thing. Don't remake your character without permission to do so.
Right.
But then if like he found out that, oh, well, you're better at this other character's better at sneaking than me. Well, I'm already the strongest. I want to be the best at sneaking too. And so then he would go home and remake his character so he was the best at sneaking too. Mm-hmm. And like a whole slew of problems here. But it's like, dude, the point of the game is not to be the best. I mean, there's quite a bit of the game that is about being a part of the team. Right. And, you know, there's no I in team, blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
whatever.
You want to be a good asset to your team.
Yes.
But, you know, you don't want to, you don't...
If you don't need the rest of the team, why are you in the team?
Why are you playing a game that involves other people?
Exactly. And just like trying to win, having, or even this is, I didn't even have this written down, but like the idea of the players versus the DM is such a toxic attitude. Mm-hmm. It is not the players versus the DM. The DM doesn't win or lose.
Right.
The players don't really win or lose either. They make it to the end of the story. I guess you could see that as winning, but like,
I mean, you've definitely said before that like winning D&D is when everyone is having a good time.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
As long as everyone's having a good time, you're all winning. Like that's what winning is in this game, because that's just
like some of the most memorable and most interesting games I've had came when like we lost a battle.
Sure.
Or like I mentioned, I had a character that died and it was the best thing that could have happened to that character.
Right.
I mentioned that with Ichi, he started a war because he lost a save, and like it completely overturned the whole plot of the campaign up to that point.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And so, you know, you got to be willing to accept that bad things are going to happen. That you have to separate bad things happening in the game from losing, because they are not the same thing. In addition to all those, forcing the rest of the group to abide by your schedule is something I would say is a problem player. That could be the player that is always late. It might be that like every time the group wants to set a date here, oh, I can't do that. I have something going on that day, so let's change it. Again, that doesn't mean that anything is necessarily wrong with you. It might just be that you need to find a group that fits your schedule better. If like, you know, if I was ever in a group and I couldn't make it to half the games, I would probably just say, you know, I'm sorry guys, I'll catch you next time if my schedule changes or whatever.
Sure.
Another big thing, arguing with the DM.
Oh, yeah.
Do not argue with the DM.
Yeah.
If you have an objection, you can bring it up to the DM. I would implore you to do so after the session is over. Mm-hmm. But if you are going to bring something up to the DM and he takes what you say and he does what he wants to do anyway, that's it. That's end of story.
Yeah.
If he keeps doing it, you can't keep arguing with him. You should just find a group that is a better fit for you.
Right. Yeah. If it is something that bothers you that much, yeah, then you maybe need to find a different group.
Yeah. Either find a new group or stop complaining about it.
All right. Or learn to accept it, which is tough if it's something big for you, like if it's like a rule that he's breaking that you feel like shouldn't be broken.
Yeah.
Then that could be difficult to reconcile. So
right.
You might just need to find some different group to play with or something.
Because like if you brought it to his attention and he keeps doing it, he's gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's his right. Mm-hmm. So either get used to it or get out of there.
Yeah.
The guy that I'm going to bring in is my worst DM whenever we get to that question. A big issue that I had was that like he was constantly making up rules where other rules already existed, and he would like stick to those, and if somebody objected, he would shut them down. And I mean, I had a lot of issues with these, but after the first couple times it came up, I realized like, okay, well, I mean, he's just going to be like this. When I ended up leaving the group, it wasn't because, oh, we just kept arguing. No, it was just because like I didn't like his play style and I wanted to start my own game so I could have my own play style.
Sure.
Yeah. So don't argue with the DM. That is a big thing. If you don't want to be a problem player, that is number one. Do not argue with the DM. You have every right to tell the DM, hey, I think we should have done it this way. But again, like I said, you say it once. And if he takes what you say and doesn't follow it, you can't mention it again. That's it.
Yeah,
that's just how he wants to run his game.
I mean, if it's something like that, talk to him, ask him why are you deciding to do this? He might have a reason that might be understandable. He might be like, oh, okay, like it's important to this aspect of the story, so yeah. I understand it now. So as long as it's not something that you're just completely against, maybe try to talk to them about it. And you might learn something about it that makes you understand it and makes you okay with it.
Right. So some less general examples. A lot of these I haven't necessarily encountered personally. The first of these is players who use the game as a medium for acting out perverse fantasies. Now,
sure.
I've never encountered this personally, but I've read enough different stories about it online that I know that this is a thing where people will they'll join a public game in a gaming store or something, and then, they're playing female dark elf who, is very well endowed and the player is constantly describing, the physics of her body and so on and so on. And it makes everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, this goes with the rest of the other things. It's if the rest of the party is fine with it, then you're not necessarily a problem player.
I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is definitely something that in a lot of cases is going to make everybody very feel very embarrassed,
very
or
uncomfortable.
Awkward. Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah. Also, I've also heard of players who are really into describing torture and how they gut that goblin and so on. So those sorts of things. Again, if it's making other people uncomfortable, don't do that.
Yeah, and it could it's as simple as a lot of people who play things like D&D aren't necessarily socially
comfortable, maybe?
I guess. I mean, not to...
It's a stereotype, I know, and it's not accurate for 100% of the people out there.
Exactly. And and I definitely have my social issues and everything, but I mean, it's it's somebody who isn't used to being in a social setting, acting out things like that. Maybe it's just this is the form of creative outlet that they can they can get behind. I don't know.
So I guess really it's just kind of the advice is to try to be aware of how other players are affected by your what you do. I don't know.
Sure.
Another one is joke characters. Again, this goes entirely with the expectations. Mm-hmm. If everybody wants to do a serious, gritty campaign, and then hey, I'm Pepsi McBurger, and whoa, I'm going to tie the bad guy's shoes together. So
hey, whoop, boom.
Yeah, just try to match the tone of whatever the rest of the campaign is.
Yeah.
Another one is people that say my character wouldn't join the party or my character wouldn't do this. We talked about this a couple episodes ago.
Sure.
If your character wouldn't do that, then make another character who would.
Right, yeah. It's if you're going to say my character wouldn't join the party, then it's okay, then he doesn't join the party. Now make a character that would join the party and we can continue playing.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
Anytime that your character wouldn't do something, you are literally the god of that character. Just change that character so that they would.
Yeah, or make up some justification for it, or make up some event that might happen that might change that character's mind, or something like that.
So another one is skimming from the treasure. We talked about this as well.
Right, yeah.
Stealing from the party. Now, again, maybe there are some groups out there that are okay with this, but don't do this unless you know that the group is okay with that, because that's a serious thing.
I mean, I see some... I see something with it, if you made a thief roguish character that has these abilities, and you gave up the ability, you didn't choose wizard, so you don't have spells. You chose rogue, so you have this sleight of hand skill. But in that case, I feel like the DM can easily be okay, you find some extra treasure.
Yeah.
If you roll high enough on this ability, you find extra treasure. So you're not necessarily taking away from everybody else. You might you get a little bonus because you've put these points into that skill. You get a bonus in that way. Whereas, the other characters, their moment to shine is when the barbarian is able to do a bunch of damage, or when the wizard is able to do a fun spell that saves the day or solves a puzzle or something.
You make a good point. I still don't like players skimming from the treasure, but I don't know. If you're working with the DM with it, you can do whatever you want. Small little tangent. There was a card game that was created by Wizards of the Coast a bunch of years ago called Three Dragon Ante.
Oh, right.
They released this card game. It was just kind of a basic card game. You could play it. Mm-hmm. And I think you did have to, I don't think you could play it with regular playing cards, but there was a way that you could play the game. And if you played it as part of a D&D campaign, depending on what class your character was, you got some sort of a bonus when playing Three Dragon Ante.
Oh, right. Yeah,
one of them was
it was a card game that was played within the
it was around the time the Age of Worms came out.
Mm-hmm.
I have a physical copy of this game,
right.
And in the like Greyhawk universe or whatever, it was a game.
Yeah,
and so like if you were playing as a rogue, the part of the game was like you'd play cards and you would be putting coins into this pile, and sometimes you'd put coins in, sometimes you'd take coins out, and if you were playing a rogue, every time you took a coin out of the pile, you could take 2 coins. And I think that's a neat idea.
Sure.
For that game. Again, I'm not necessarily... It's when it comes out of the party's pool, that's different.
Right.
And when it's purely in universe, that's fine. It's when that theft impacts how much enjoyment everybody else is able to get out of the game.
Sure.
That's when I have a problem with it.
I mean, it's a gambling game within the game.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like you are... The players who are participating understand that it's gambling.
Yeah,
like there's a chance they're going to lose something.
Right.
But I mean, I do think that's really cool. It's it's a card game that, different classes give you different abilities within that card game.
Yeah, and then
that's
I think it was like if you play like a sorcerer, this one card that has a dragon on it is like more powerful or something.
Huh.
I don't know. There were a lot of little things for each class.
That's pretty cool.
A couple more. I just want to do a couple more things that have to do with problem players. One is players that say, I can't do anything, so I'm not going to do it. Like, I can't do anything effective, so I'm just not going to do anything on my turn.
Sure.
We have a good friend that a long time ago, his name is Steven. Mm-hmm. I'm only saying his name because I know that he is genuinely remorseful about this. When he and I first started playing D&D, I was the DM. He was playing a gnome wizard. And there would be times where he didn't want to spend any of his higher level spells, so he wouldn't do anything on his turn. He would not contribute to battle at all. It got to a point where he would literally say, I'm going to make a tea and cakes check.
So
his character in the middle of combat was just going to have some tea and cakes because he is ineffective in combat, so he's not even going to try. Sure. I suppose some people might be okay with this, but like I can understand a lot of people not being okay with it. It's like you're literally not even carrying your own weight in this combat.
Right. You're making battle harder for the rest of the team because you're up against a challenge that is rated for your party level.
Yeah.
And you're not helping.
Right. And another part of this issue was that in his specific case, it's that he didn't want to use any of his more powerful spells.
Right.
Quote unquote, in case he needed them later. Very good friend Chris, who has contributed to the podcast, and we mention him all the time. He put it very, very well. He said, if I die with it in my pocket, I deserved to die. So if I had a higher level spell I could have used and I didn't, and my death was a result of that, I deserved to die. I did not deserve to have that ability because I was not willing to use it when my life depended on it.
I'm sure we could probably do an entire episode on
Chrisisms.
Well, criticisms and just like the debate of whether or not to use a consumable item.
Oh yeah,
like consumable items you'll stockpile them in games and things and
because let's full disclosure here. I do that when I'm playing video games.
Right.
I do not spend consumables. That being said, if I died, I'm not going to blame anybody but myself.
Right. Yeah. You're not going to blame the game. You're going to be like, well, I could have used that item and it would have maybe helped.
Yeah.
But then what if it didn't? And then you just waste the item.
That is exactly my problem. Sorry, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. When I was playing Bloodborne, there was a boss very early on that gave me so much trouble. And I thought to myself, surely other people are having this much trouble too. So I went online. I was very specifically trying not to look anything up for this game. I was not using a wiki. I wasn't even going on the message boards. But I went on Reddit and I just typed in the boss's name to see if there are other people having the problem. And so I would see like, hey, is anybody having trouble with boss, blah, blah, blah. And I click on it and they're like, 'cause I'm not. This boss is so easy. It dies so fast. I don't even get to see its abilities. And everybody was like that. Everybody was like, yeah, no, it dies so fast. There's nothing I can do to kill it slower. And I'm like, what the heck game are these people playing?
Right.
And the only advice I could find was, oh, you should use this consumable and this consumable. And I'm like, I die in like 5 seconds. That consumable wouldn't have done anything, and then I would have died anyway. And then, guess what? I tried using those consumables, used them all up because I kept dying.
Right. It's like, and then you're just out of the consumable that apparently makes it so easy. And
exactly.
And then you're just, I guess you're
and
just
then
stuck.
When I finally did kill that boss, It had nothing to do with how much. It basically had to do with the boss's random number generator. The boss didn't use the attacks that kill me really fast.
Jeez.
So I don't know. Anyway, sorry, the little tangent there. And then one more thing: players that try to control other people's characters.
Sure.
I've never really seen too much of this. At least, definitely not for it to be a problem. But I've played with plenty of people who have had problems with that in the past.
Right. So this is like going beyond hogging the spotlight. And
yeah, it's when you're in combat and like you're about to take your turn and then the player next to you is like, no, don't do that. You should attack this guy instead. Mm-hmm. There's a point where it's okay, where it's just like, well, we should probably focus on this one enemy and just kill him.
Right, yeah.
Kill him first.
Like a suggestion sort of thing.
Yeah, but when you're like, no, don't do that. He's not going to do that. He's going to do this other thing instead. Or when the party is like trying to decide something and then that player just says to the GM, no, we're going to go do this. Don't worry about what they're saying. We're just going to go do this.
Yeah.
So you can take it too far. There is definitely an acceptable level of it. It might even just be a matter of framing your suggestion so that it sounds like a suggestion and not an order. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of examples of what could be a problem player. And each one, it's pretty self-explanatory how you deal with it. Just once you can define what it is that's the problem. One thing I do want to mention though, when I posted this on Reddit, and there was this one person that replied that I think was not being helpful at all. And I was talking this over with our good friend Steve today at the before the D&D game. And he actually put it in perspective for me that I think makes a lot of sense. And I think would be a really, really good contribution to this discussion. So I had a person, I'm not going to say his name, but I posted this thing. I was like, hey, what's an example of a problem player? Mm-hmm. I want to be able to cover all bases. I want your guys' opinions. And a guy replied saying, a problem player is a player who causes a problem. Don't overthink it. To which my response was, if I'm going to be talking about this for an hour and I want people to listen to it, I probably need to put a bit more thought into it than that.
Right.
To which his response was, or this isn't a particularly fertile topic. Flash forward a couple hours when there's been like 130 responses to my question,
sure.
All with great examples of what's a problem player. But I was telling this to Steve and he said this to me. He said, if someone is a problem player, they are not thinking, I might be a problem player. They're not thinking, how do you avoid being a problem player?
Sure.
So basically, if you are asking the question, how do I avoid being a problem player? You probably aren't a problem player and you're probably not going to be. So the best thing you can do is just realizing, I might be the problem player. Once you realize that, you've already made 10 steps in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. You could start fixing that. You could figure out what you're doing wrong. You can start talking to your group. You could start talking to your DM,
listening to your group and listening to your DM as well.
Yes. And you figure out, okay, what can I change? What can we change? What can we do differently so that none of us are being a problem?
Yeah. So really it just comes down to know what your group wants. And, just don't be a jerk. Try to keep the rest of your group in consideration. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That is how you avoid being the problem player.
Yep. Cool. You just don't be a problem. Gabe, don't overthink it.
I guess. All right. Well, I think that will do it for today. Mm-hmm. If anybody wanted to submit items or questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of the questions asked, and for important links, or to download the episode, please go to interpartyconflict.blogspot.com, where we have a link to our SoundCloud page to download it. Find our Facebook page, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict for weekly discussion questions submitted by me. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict, and we're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless, the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, What can you tell everybody for next time? How about this, Jeff? Don't overthink it. Actually, no. Overthink it. Overthink it a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Next time on Interparty Conflict.
Jeff,
Yes.
I'm in a coma.